Hey everybody, this is Bacter, back with some more Heat Signature. We're Trust or Grounder. We're talking to Seder Fiasco about our personal mission. Now, I've told you guys about those before. Those are high difficulty missions that you can take on once you've done enough other stuff and once you get a little bit of money. Money in this, by the way, is acid, basically, because you're in a big acid nebula. And the deal is, once you pay her your fee, you unlock a high-tier mission. If you do the mission, then you can retire and pass on a piece of your favorite gear, so that other members of your squad in the future and other friends of yours who also have the game, which I think is really neat, can find it. I think the dialogue, just like in Gunpoint, is a high point in the game. It's a little glib, but it's still pretty good. Now, why retire? Why do the personal mission? Well, two reasons. First off, you take more wounds as your character goes along, just in the natural course of getting shot a whole bunch of times, and your wound recovery goes down. Once it gets down to 0, if you're ever ejected into space, you just die and there's no coming back. So you want to retire before that happens. Second off, you want to liberate stations. That's kind of what we're doing here. And in the course of liberating stations, as a character does more and more missions, they become less and less inspiring. People kind of get used to hearing about them. And so, that's just another way for the game to encourage you. Don't just have one character and become godlike with them. Retire them, get new gear, learn new things. The game has a lot of different setups that you can do. And it wants you to keep trying things, to keep restarting. And frankly, I think that's a really good idea. Props to the game for doing it. Now, what I'm running up against here, and what I'm going to be showing off, is a particular part of the game that I had some trouble with. I think I said in the thread I was probably about a third of the way up the learning curve. And, that sounds about right. I'm really not making the most of the gear that I have. A lot of my stuff right now is rechargeable. None of it is self-charging. None of it is armor-piercing. So that is really what I'm looking for. It seems to me like you can deal with shields before you can deal with armor in this game. Shields are dealt with crash beams or subverters. Either one will take down a shield pretty much forever. Crash traps work as well, and glitch traps, of course. But armor is harder. You need something that's armor-piercing or an explosive or an acid trap. Those are the ways to deal with it. Now, you can get grenade launchers pretty early on, which deals with armor, but they don't have a lot of ammo. Unless they're, self-stocking or something like that, you can't deal with a lot of guards. And my personal mission has armored targets and a whole bunch of them. So I'm going to need some way to deal with them. And I need better equipment for that. And unfortunately, at this point, I just don't have it. Now, again, I said, I am not making the most of the equipment I have. But what you're going to see this update is just sort of scenes from me flailing about, going to different missions and not always doing the best, looking for better gear. I want to find drops in ships. I'm not getting that good stuff coming from my from the shop in my home yet, because I haven't done enough missions. I haven't unlocked enough stuff. But I need to use a different mercenary in order to get that. And honestly, I'm just kind of running Trust or Grounder into the ground until I can either do my personal mission and retire, or take it in the teeth. So that's sort of the goal in this update. Now, I think I've said before, these guys are trackers. If you let them get line of sight on you without taking out their gear, then they instantly just one-shot you. And down you go. I'm doing a lot of off-world security missions because I've already taken quite a few wounds as Truster, and the nice thing about off-world is they only use non-lethal weapons, so even if I get shot by them, I don't take another wound. I'll just stay right where I am. That doesn't actually apply to the contractors. If you trip an alarm and contractors start to stream in, they don't work for off-world security. They're independent contractors, and they carry real guns. Now, you notice I have some crash beams and I have some subverters, and they're all rechargeable. So I was talking about that a little bit ago. Rechargeable. Regular weapons just deplete, and then you have to buy new ones when you're out. You can buy rounds for regular guns and armor-piercing rounds for armor-piercing guns. But for tech stuff, you need to buy new. That was close. You need to buy all new. Unless you have rechargeable. And then every time you enter a friendly station, all their charges refill. And so that's sort of the second best. The best in the game is self-charging, and self-charging stuff is incredible. It's just what it says. It recharges during a mission. There's a delay, and it can be quite lengthy, but honestly, if you play your cards right, and you kind of creep around and, don't try to take on everybody all at once, you can manage it. Now, as I said before, I have a couple ways of dealing with armored targets right now. I have acid traps, which can strip off the armor, and I have grenades and rockets, and, there's usually some explosives in ships and windows that I can knock people out of windows with. And maybe if I get a little bit better at the game, I'll feel comfortable taking on a personal mission with just that, but for right now, I really don't feel like I have it. Do notice that once you take out a tracker's senses, his kit with your subverter, or with your crash beam, then he can't find you. If you take it out with a subverter, he actually gets completely turned around and lost for a much longer time. If you take it out with, what my plan was here, these guys are clearly still active. If you take it out with a crash beam, he just loses track of you. Somebody said in the thread before that taking out things with subverters is generally superior to crash beams. Crash beams also take out their comms equipment, so they can't call in alerts, whereas subverters do not, but in every other way, the subverter is like a beefed-up crash beam. If you take out somebody's shield with a crash beam, they just don't have a shield. If you take it out with a subverter, the shield works in reverse as how you would think it would. If they try to fire at you, the bullet bounces off their shield and hits them. Whereas if, here's my capture target, moving away from the defender. If you hit somebody that has, well, we'll deal with life beams, I guess, when we get there. Just basically, subverters are crash beams plus, is what I should say. You can do a little sneaky trick with shields, with subverters, and anything that's rechargeable. In the middle of a mission, you can actually go back to a friendly station, step foot in there, and get all your charges back. So you do kind of have infinite charges with them. The problem I have is, that doesn't really help me deal with all of the many guards that there are going to be with armor on in my personal mission. Now, I have some stuff. I have a self-charging swapper at this point. I found that, so that's really nice. I can swap just infinitely if I have enough time, and everything else that I have is rechargeable. But teleporting around is all well and good. It doesn't help if there are a ton of guards and they all basically bum rush you, which is what I am expecting in the personal mission. Now again, I'm not arguing that if I had a little bit more skill, maybe I could manage this. I just wouldn't feel right going in without probably some kind of an armor-piercing gun, which you can find in the shops, although that seems like it only shows up after you've done more liberations and after you've advanced in the game a little bit more. Or if I can find, what would be great would be like a self-charging grenade launcher, which absolutely does exist. Then I could take on any number of armored guards. Or I could also use a glitch trap if I could find one of those. Again, it would have to be self-charging. Glitch traps are something we'll get to in a little bit, but if you use them correctly, then you see, not only did I get shot there, and I think by a contractor, which actually gave me another wound, but the mission failed because they were able to escape. If there's two kinds of things that can happen if you get, well, there's three alarm things that can happen if you trip an alarm. One of them is the alarm, the person that you're looking for. If you're trying to do an assassination or a capture, they can make a run for the teleporter. If they get there, then the mission fails. The second is the pilot can start piloting you to an enemy station, and then you have however long it would normally take to get to that enemy station. If you make it to the pilot and take him out in time, then you're fine. If you don't, that's just a game over. Notice I was going to try some shenanigans, but I'm inside of a jammer field here. So making it to the pilot is absolutely priority one when that happens, unless you can do something else, unless you can get out in time. Now here's an armored enemy. I put down the acid trap, and see, it takes a while to recharge. It doesn't have infinite charges, and you really only works on one enemy at a time, so I don't know why I thought that turret wasn't going to get me. It's not really a solution to taking on the personal mission with all of the armored targets on it, so I'm just kind of feeling stuck at this point. And as you can see, just kind of flailing around a little bit. Notice that I'm down to 0 seconds recovery time, so Thruster Grounder is in pretty bad shape at this point. Getting ejected into space at all ever again will be an instant game over. That's just the end of Thruster. So basically, I'm doing some missions to try to either get some unlocks, I take some liberations, and get some unlocks that way, or to just randomly draw some better stuff in the shop, or to randomly find some better stuff on ships. That's more or less my goal. Looking at this again, as I say, I've had a little bit more time to practice on a non-Let's Play galaxy. You can make 3 galaxies in the game. I think I could do a bit better now. I'm seeing some tactics that I should have done, and some just some familiarity with the game that I think would help. One trick that you can try to use is leading trackers by turrets that are unfriendly. They do not notice that. So here, this is kind of fun. Going to use the visitor to teleport in. Now, as I've said with the defenders, if you take out their shield with a crash beam, you still need to knock them out or kill them in order to take the shield off of everybody else. So what I'm going to have to do is port in, take out in some way the defender, which is done now, so everybody's shield is down. There were a few people that kind of teleported around, and now I basically have to find some way of dealing with everybody else, including my assassination target. I really should be throwing wrenches and swords around at this point, and the fact that I'm doing that is not, say, something good for me. That's something else that I would do because throwing is so powerful in the future. I do also have a grenade launcher, which is worth noting. I thought I was going to maybe swap, which I did with the top person up there. You can fire that old grenade, and you see that the glitch is still coming for me here. This is one of these delicate maneuvers that really does make the game a lot of fun. Even if you're not playing at top peak like I am. Look, I took it in the teeth there, but the visitor teleported me away before anybody else could mess with me, so that's fine. I ended up surviving through that. But we can see if you trip medium reinforcements, there's just a ton of guards that come after you. And of all different sorts. And when you start mixing them, defenders mixed with trackers, that's a real tough mix. So you can see I would have taken out the tracker, but he was shielded by the defender's shield. So he kicked me out into space, and that's it for Trust or Grounder, I'm afraid. We're going to update our tactics, we're going to try again, and we'll see if we can't take on a personal mission next time on Let's Play Heat Signature. See you later, guys.